Why Women Need Power Now More Than Ever. Part 1. The moment we're in. Everywhere we look, our world is shifting and increasingly not in women's favor. Some of the same societies that once celebrated and indeed powered and frontlined women's advancement and the feminist movement are now amongst those where women are being excluded and oppressed systematically and often with extreme physical violence as well as legislative, religious, and social force. In certain circles, feminism and women's autonomy are as unpopular as any ideas could possibly be. In the United Kingdom, the continent of Africa, all over Eastern Europe and the Pacific, parts of Asia and South America and Western Europe, right-wing activists and populist politicians are ruthlessly exploiting economic and other related factors to indoctrinate young men and turn them against not just feminism, but against women in general. National governments are rolling back women's rights. Laws that once protected our choices and our bodies, many of them only recently assented to, are being rewritten or repealed. Fewer than 10 of the world's 192 countries are even close to having a half and half male-female ratio in the running of the country, although studies consistently show that governments are more stable, serve their communities better, and function more efficiently overall the more women are elected to public office. The corporate world, always heavy on male leadership, is showing itself still not enthusiastic about unequivocally including women, despite the fact that study after study indicates very clearly that corporations make more money, serve their investors better, and are better places to work when women are in leadership. All around the world, men are igniting wars, intensifying conflict, and initiating civil strife with what seems like wild abandon and total disregard to the lives of women and their children. From Congo to Ukraine, Palestine, Yemen, Libya, Sudan, in India, Pakistan, the Philippines and Brazil, Russia, Turkey, the United Kingdom, France, and the United States' newest dispensation, amongst others. In every single instance, women are collateral damage, the easiest prey, and altogether excluded from any peacemaking efforts. The fundamentalism that is driving men's religious wars of domination is increasingly brutal, dangerous, and deadly to women. Backward-facing sects of some of the world's more populous religions, some of the world's most populous religions, strenuously and sometimes violently resist any developments, social, legislative, economic, or even religious, that suggests even the most mundane considerations of the safety and freedom of women and girls. Some countries already having a reputation for being dangerous to women are becoming even more so. For Afghanistan, for example, human rights lawyer Nateek Malikzada and other Afghan women's rights activists report this declaration from Taliban cleric Mahmoud Zakeri. Women have no right to use both eyes and should only look at the path ahead with one eye. The other eye is apparently to be covered by a patch under the gauze window of the burqa, inside which the woman is already hidden and through which she already has difficulty seeing the path ahead, should she ever actually be given permission to venture outside of the home, to walk on any path. In the United States, the evangelicals, who have been pushing to the fore for decades, are now a significant political and social force, resisting with everything they have women's reproductive rights, and especially women's right to choose when to have children, even in cases of rape and incest. And even when the victim is not a woman, but is merely a child herself. Women in the European Union are battling the same foe. The technology sector is steeped in bro culture, a 21st century iteration of the old boys network, which itself still holds sway in all sectors. This tech space, global in its reach, is owned and controlled by men, American tech bros mostly, who seem to view the ascendancy of women and others as threats to their dominance and challenges to their ideas of what the balance of power in the world ought to be. Their systems, their algorithms, are set to work against women's access to and dissemination of certain very specific kinds of information, while they simultaneously ease and facilitate the activities and expressions of the anti-woman factions. Social media services routinely employ suspensions, shadow bans, and outright prohibitions on the use of their platforms and censor language in ways that make it really difficult for women to render the full extent of their ideas around issues like reproductive rights, men's violence against women, and women's resistance to the violence of war and genocide. Women also find themselves often censored in their discussions about the anti-feminist, anti-woman issues and with regard to the actions of its proponents. Today, social and legacy media alike invest extraordinary levels of bits, bytes, and airtime in activity that could only be described as advocating and intending women's diminution and exclusion. Yet even as traditional media and information channels are losing reach and influence, whole new communities are being created in social media that have global reach and which exhibit a determined and aggressive resistance to women's rising visibility, confidence, and power. In some sectors, the vilification of women is intensifying by the minute, exacerbated by incels, notions of male loneliness, red pill social media influencers, and tradwives. One podcaster and social media influencer named Andrew even mused out loud that patriarchy will forever be the default for human societies because of forced doctrine. Now, forced doctrine, he says, could allow men, if they decide to, and I'm quoting here, if they decide to, they can exterminate every single woman in their nations, and there's not a damn thing women can do about it. That's what he said. Now, none of this is coincidence. It is backlash. It has all the signs of male panic, and it is not new. Way back in 1991, Susan Faludi, an American journalist and author, wrote a 552-page book titled Backlash. In this book, the cover of which describes it as a disturbing examination of women's crumbling status in American life and culture, Faludi quoted political scientists Seymour Martin Lipset and Earl Rabb's definition of backlash politics. They said backlash politics is the reaction by groups which are declining in a felt sense of importance, influence, and power. The reaction by groups which are declining in a felt sense of importance, influence, and culture. That is exactly what is happening today. The backlash against women, the backlash today and the backlash of 40 years ago, is men's fear of losing control of the world that they built. Now, by any estimation, this world that men have built is in very bad shape, has been so for a long time, and is in desperate need of repair. But it is so because of men's unreasoning penchant for power, which they maintain and exercise through violence, domination, and exclusion. And of course, the world is in the state it's in, also very largely because of men's illogical resistance to women's participation in the activities of leadership and power. They argue, despite historical and always mounting evidence to the contrary, either that women are simply not capable of contributing in any meaningful sense to the affairs of the world, or in the spirit of antediluvian religious fundamentalism, that women's supposed incapacity and exclusion are divinely ordered, by gods of the male persuasion, of course. Now, naturally, women have always objected to this characterization and continue to challenge the God said so narrative. In 1980, Jerry Falwell, an American pastor and televangelist and founder of The Moral Majority, claimed in his treatise, Listen America, that the Equal Rights Amendment strikes at the foundation of our entire social structure. He alleged that feminists had launched a satanic attack on the home and vowed, with all my heart, I want to bury the Equal Rights Amendment once and for all in a deep, dark grave. Every backlash movement has had its preferred scapegoat, Faludi also wrote. For the new right, in Jerry Falwell's time, a prime enemy would be feminist women. That claim, way back in the last century, which is being incessantly regurgitated now, is that women's freedoms threaten family values and have destroyed society, men's patriarchal society to be specific. Now, this American war on women has assumed the same hegemonic stance as the United States government's foreign policy historically has. The right, the alt-right, the far right, and today's moral majority are using bucket loads of money, have employed an army of men and some women, and the fear of God, literally, in the same ways and to the same end, exporting their credo to every corner of the world. They are building partnerships with like-minded organizations and individuals, opening branches of their churches, lobbying parliamentarians to repeal laws, vilifying individual women, attempting to weaken women's organizations, and running sustained media campaigns against women's rights, autonomy, and agency. And that is why the United States is now increasingly a source of considerable risk and harm to the lives of women and girls at home and in many countries of the world, assailed as women and girls are by this flood of men, money, and misogynistic rhetoric. The United States, once the beacon on which women all over the world fastened their gaze in their fight against the inequality, injustice, and powerlessness of sexism and patriarchy, is now instead a major cause of alarm and fear for a number of reasons. An American man whom The Guardian refers to as a far-right pro-Nazi internet troll, and who is said to describe himself as a proud incel, has chosen to corrupt a long-standing feminist slogan used by women all over the world: my body, my choice. My body, my choice. He posted his version on the night of the 2024 United States presidential elections, and it went viral instantly. That corruption of the slogan and the eagerness with which it was received and propagated around the world by boys and young men, and by men, is deeply troubling evidence of the dangers inherent in this particular backlash against women. Your body, my choice, as the Moira Donegan article warns, is a rejection of women's rights to control their own bodies, and it is also a rape threat. The men and boys who use it are not merely taunting women with the threat of an unwanted forced pregnancy, she writes. They're also taunting them with the threat of forced sex. In her book, Faludi also showed how the backlash message of that time was spread also through presidential speeches as well as the media. The Guardian article reports that Your Body, My Choice was immediately adopted by male supporters of the Trump campaign, which, The Guardian highlights, had already positioned itself as a champion of a hierarchical gender order, aiming to restore men to a place of wrongfully deprived supremacy over women. Power is the point. Power misused, abused, and hoarded because men misunderstand it to mean only domination. Power, the way men manage it, is harmful to women and children, and importantly, to men themselves. But men fail to comprehend this. So this reinvigorated push by the patriarchy for the exclusion of women from full participation in human life has one overarching goal: power for men. Power for men. History and logic tell us that it also means powerlessness for women. And men want that. Men know that. That is what they want. But women have never been powerless. Through the millennia of exclusion and the violence of men, women have always fought for our power and found ways to sustain it. Women have been handicapped, yes, and very severely so. Women have been violated and bloodied, yes. We've been pushed around, certainly, pushed down, pushed under, but powerless women have never been. And women will never be powerless. Women are tired. It is exhausting, but women are not done. Women can do hard things. So in the face of this new onslaught, women are gathering and connecting to access women's power and apply it. Faced with intensifications of violence and subjected to new forms of violence, women are discovering new ways to exercise power. Not in the male sense of domination or control or hierarchy, but in a deeper, more sacred sense of agency, creation, and influence to shape a brighter and safer world. And that is precisely what our world needs now. That is what will save us and improve our world. So we are standing at a pivotal point. The tide is against women, but the current is ours to command. And women will command it. But the world will not change until women stop asking for permission to change it. Women don't need permission. Women just need to circle up and amplify our efforts. That is also the advice from Jeanette LeBlanc, a woman who has claimed her power, if ever a woman has. She wrote, "A circle of women may just be the most powerful force known to humanity. If you have one, embrace it. If you need one, Seek it. If you find one, for the love of all that is good and holy, dive in. Let yourself rise fierce and love gentle. So here is your invitation to join me, to join us at the power table in the house of power in your own life. Remembering that power is not something to fear, but something to embody and exercise in the direction of goodness. Thank you for joining me at the power table for part 1 of the series, Why Women Need Power Now More Than Ever. I hope it sparked thought, reflection, and maybe even a little fire in you. I'd love to hear your insights and questions. Share them in the comments or send a voice note if you're listening on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss part 2. We will continue this journey. And if the work speaks to you, consider supporting us in the House of Power on Patreon and Substack, and sharing it so more women can come find their seat at the power table. Until next time, take good care. Stay grounded, stay powerful, and stay in the conversation.